It's time for the Charlotte FC podcast. All right, welcome to Charlotte FC podcast. We are on the eve of Game 3, Charlotte FC versus NYCFC in this first round, best of three matchup. And I got Tony Husband today. He was back at the last match, and he was actually almost a year ago, doing Game 3 of Charlotte and Orlando. So he's been through the struggles and through the pain and through the glory of Charlotte FC these past couple of years. Tony, welcome.
Nick, thanks very much for having me. It's amazing to think it's a year since that, from a Charlotte perspective, rather torturous experience in Florida with that Game 3 in Orlando. And funnily enough, I was only just talking to Zoran Kaneta earlier today, and we were still talking about the Patrick Adjuman goal that both of us felt should have stood because we felt he was onside. But there we go. That is the past, even if it's hard to let go of it. Right. As we now look forward, though, to a big one on Friday at the Bank. Yeah,
definitely. So you've been watching these teams. Of course, you called the last match. Talking from the manager's perspectives, because you, as an announcer, you guys get some time with the coaches that, not everybody else necessarily gets. And you get to kind of know them a little bit better than some of us. So let's start with Pascal Jensen. I think you even mentioned it in Game 2. You're like, New York City has found their man. And he seems to be fitting in there well. And, the record speaks for it, but just the culture speaks for it. So tell me what kind of manager you have learned about him.
Well, it's interesting because, ironically, I hadn't done New York City until the playoffs. So it's been a chance to meet him at an interesting part of the season, if you like. And often when, you've gone through a whole season and you find yourself talking to a manager that you haven't spoken to during the course of the year, you wonder how much you're going to get. You wonder how open they can be and just how much they want to talk about the bigger picture for those of us who perhaps haven't been seeing as much of New York City as some of the other teams. And he's been just fantastic to deal with. Very open, very helpful to kind of give us the bigger picture, Ross Smith and I, of what it's been like for this New York City team this season, taking us on the journey really from when the group got together in January and all the way through. He talks tactically about what works and what pleases him and what hasn't, and gives us a very clear idea of just what needs to be better. So he's been very, very good to deal with. I think he felt after the second game that they just needed to be a little bit braver and stronger on the ball at times to try and get Maxi Morales into kind of better situations with a bit more space, to use the advantage they get at Yankee Stadium to their advantage during the run of play. He didn't feel they possibly did that as well as they could. I mean, none of this stuff is anything that most of us wouldn't have seen by watching the game. But all the same, it's great that we get the insight from the coaches.
Right. All right. And then Dean, of course, you've had some opportunities doing some games with him. Is he showing you anything different? Is he talking the same talk that you would expect?
Well, Dean is fabulous to get along with and fabulous to talk to. But I will also say, in the best traditions of an English coach, he also keeps a few things quite close to his chest. He will be very open and welcoming. And in that regard, tremendous. But he's not always going to perhaps show all his cards. So I don't expect to see anything too different from Charlotte as we go into this game. I asked him before Game 2, considering going into that match, as with this match, the season was on the line for Charlotte as opposed to it not being on the line for New York. So I said, is this the moment you might throw a wrinkle in there, do something different, spring a surprise? And he didn't give a clear answer, but of course we got the answer when we saw the team on the Saturday. It was Zaha coming back, and that was as much as it was. And I'm not really a betting man, Nick, but I mean, who would bet against the idea that that Charlotte pretty much go the same way in this playoff game, depending, of course, on the fitness of the group. But certainly, as of this week, there were no major injury concerns.
Right, and from both sides, they both have to feel pretty good in some respects. I mean, because New York had a moment And I think maybe it's the crossbar that will determine who wins it, because whoever hits the crossbar seems like has won the match. But besides not getting a goal, but I just feel like they both feel like they've gotten the best, and they've had some poor moments, and that's where they lost. And I was just looking back at head-to-head stats for them for their history, and we're looking at maybe three or 2.7 shots on goal per game for each team. I mean, there's going to be very few chances. So the team that's going to win is going to get one of those three chances that they get a shot on target.
Well, my idea of just how close this is, Nick, is that I've even established that the team that wears black shirts has actually won the first two games of this series. And now that might be worrying to hear that New York City will wear black shirts tomorrow night, and Charlotte will be in light blue.
Right.
I mean, it's that tight that I've even looked at things like that, because, you know, there's not much between these sides at all. They finished pretty much side by side in the league. Their games, you know, in the regular season, there was a little bit of, you know, space between them, but I mean, it was spot kicks that won it, ironically, for New York at Yankee Stadium in the regular season. A couple of goals here at the bank in Charlotte's favor in what was a great home season. There's just very, very little between these two sides. Now, who knows? This is the MLS playoffs. I sat down, like so many, I'm sure, to watch Seattle and Minnesota on very late on Monday night, and suspected it would be a tight game. And we had 5 goals in the first half. I mean, stranger things have happened, but I feel like this could well be a game decided by the odd goal. And in that circumstance, you feel like the first goal could be all important.
Yeah, definitely. And both seem to thrive on those first goals, whether it's the first 15 minutes or like the last 15 minutes of a half, or kind of those edges. It seems like that's when the teams have been most vulnerable on both sides. So I anticipate something early, and if we don't see something early, it'll be in those kind of stoppage ending kind of things where, you know, both teams, they don't, as much as they like PKs, I don't think they want to go there.
No, I don't think they do. I think set piece is massive as well. If it's going to be a tight game, a set piece could decide it. I think Thiago Martins is probably still closing his eyes at night and heading off to sleep, and he's probably still seeing that header that he should have done better with from that free kick for NYC at Yankee Stadium. Because to be honest, if he scores that, I think New York win the game and go through. And he didn't really do a great job of it. It was a decent save from Kalina, but Martins, you know, needed to bury that header. So, you know, but don't rule out a set piece, because with Wilf obviously in the team, assuming obviously he starts again, then set pieces are going to be something that Charlotte will win in and around the penalty area, and then you've got to look to try and convert from there.
Well, like you said, you've been watching MLS playoff action. What has been like maybe a trend or something you're noticing about this year's playoffs that might be different from the past, or something that's just very similar, and you're like, this is how MLS playoffs happen to be? Any insights?
Well, the only thing is I'm just fascinated to see the evolution of this 3-game series, because it's such a unique thing. You know, you don't really get 3 games played with no aggregate scoring carrying over. We're still, this is only the 3rd season of it. I've kind of, you know, I suppose my argument is rather undone by the way this Charlotte-New York City series has unfolded. But I've made a point chatting over coffee with Ross Smith, you know, that sometimes I wonder about the value of game 1, because really it all comes down to the winner of game 2. So I'm looking at the perspective of Atlanta last season and Nashville this season. They go down to Miami and they play a game 1 and they lose, as everybody predicts they would. The game that matters is the game they play at home, which is game 2, and they level the series in front of their home fans. Game 1's out the window at that point. It's all about game 3. So now, I mean, it's happened the other way round in this series, in that the away side has won both games, and that's gone against the trend. I mean, I think what we are seeing, if you want to see something that's consistent, is just the home sides tend to be stronger. But then the 3rd game is where, you know, anything can kind of happen. I mean, I think a lot of people feel Columbus could easily go to Cincinnati this weekend and win. I think Seattle will go to Minnesota and win. You know, it's going to be very interesting to see how it goes. And I think we know with this series, New York City can come here and they can win this game. And no one would be hugely surprised if they did, even though I tilt the balance in Charlotte's favour now, having got the result at Yankee Stadium, and now they're bringing the series back home at what I think will be a louder bank tomorrow night than it was for the first game.
Yeah. And what do you think about San Diego, Portland?
Well, I wouldn't have given Portland any chance going into that series, to be honest with you. Certainly on the final day of the regular season, they tumbled into the wild card. They went up against Real Salt Lake in that game, which Ross and I did. And they produced a much, much better display, a display that I wasn't sure they had left in them. Great credit to Phil Neville and his coaching staff for picking the team up and being able to turn around from a horrific home defeat just a few days before to then get a result in the wild card. And then again, you've got to give them a lot of credit. They went to San Diego, were beaten there, but again, following my formulae, the home game then is what really mattered at Providence Park. They got the result by hook or by crook. They got the result. And so now all bets are off. They go to San Diego. It's a one-off game. Yeah. And, you wouldn't rule it out. I think San Diego are the favorites, but I wouldn't rule out Portland getting something. I mean, they've got enough players in that team that know what it's like to go on a playoff run. So, it's going to be a really good weekend of games, these 5 remaining game threes. And all sorts can happen. And of course, we referenced Miami, Nashville. No Suarez for Miami. Right. That's a huge blow for Miami, of course.
Yeah, especially as Nashville has had some difficulty with Miami and letting goals in. So this would be a nice bonus to have that around. Yeah. Now, in a 3-game series, do you feel like it gets a little chippier as we get towards the third match? And because you're playing these teams well within 10 days, kind of all of these games, and they know each other already well from playing probably once or twice during the season. For this side, playing twice. Is there something even more intense that you're seeing as you're calling these and looking at these wow, they're really after each other, or they're really picking on, certain players or certain things?
Well, they certainly know each other better now, don't they? There's no doubt. I mean, the battle between Tavon Gray and Wilfred Zaha will be another one to watch, assuming obviously both are playing in the game at the bank. That was a great battle at Yankee Stadium the last 2 occasions that they've played. So that will be really good to see. And it's interesting. I was talking to Harry Toffolo earlier today. And of course, he's a new player to the league, new player to the country. Very much enjoying Charlotte, by the way. He's absolutely feeling at home already. But games like this, going into a third game for people like him, I think are hugely helpful, because one of the things he said is that, you're just getting to know the players. You don't know the players. You see a player come off the bench and I've never seen him before. I've been playing in England or wherever I've been. I don't know necessarily, well, is he left-footed, right-footed? You don't always know this about a lot of these new faces that you're coming up against. So for people like Toffolo, that familiarity of coming up against the same team for the third straight game only serves to help people like him who are still learning about this league and about the styles and the qualities of it.
Wow. Well, it's going to be an exciting one. You guys are on the air probably pretty early, right? 6:30?
Yeah, well, there will be an MLS countdown, and we'll have plenty of content from the stadium, of course. Andrew Wiebe is with us here on site in Charlotte, so it's great to have him along with our crew. And then the kickoff is, I think, at 12 minutes past 7 local time. We hit the air with our segment ahead of game at 7 o'clock. And, it's going to be a long and nervy night, I sense. But very much looking forward to it. I know there's a great feeling around town that this is going to be a good crowd, Friday night crowd, nice weather, everything made for a bit of drama. It might not be that comfortable in your seats though, but it will be dramatic probably.
Austin, tell me about having the third person, because we haven't really had that until the playoffs. I know you've had different people like Jillian. Now you got Andrew. What has it been like to have that person kind of on the field, kind of pitching back and forth? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, great. I mean, it's wonderful to have it for the playoffs. Obviously, they just provide an insight, and they're picking things up down at pitch level. They're right between the 2 benches, so they're hearing what is being communicated between the coaches and the players. They're picking up things that we just will not see or hear in the booth. So it's a great compliment to our broadcast that we have them with us. They also bring just a different perspective as well. As you mentioned, we're fairly frequent broadcasters of Charlotte. So we see Dean and we talk to players on quite a regular basis throughout the season. And you bring in the sideline reporters who've been doing variety of other things during the campaign, centered around studios. Andrew himself has been on the road doing this tour de force on Sunday Night Soccer everywhere, all over the country. And they have a different perspective as well they bring to it. And so it's interesting to hear what they want to talk to the managers about and some of the answers they glean. That you sit there and think, yeah, that's a really good point. I hadn't thought of going down that road. So it helps us, I hope, with the storytelling of the game, the drama of the game, and gives the fans, an even fuller picture of what's happening.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Tony. I know you're heading off to do some fun things tonight with some Charlotte fans, so go enjoy that. And we'll be listening on Apple TV tomorrow night, 6:30, even before that, MLS Countdown, and Tony Husband and Ross Smith on the broadcast for NYCFC and Charlotte in Game 3. Thanks, Tony.
Thanks, Nick.
You've been listening to the Charlotte FC podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, follow the show and share it with someone who loves the stories behind the sport. We are on X, Instagram, Blue Sky, and YouTube at CLTFC Podcast. Until next time, I'm Nick Finelli. Enjoy the day.